Okay, let's move on. Okay, last time we were learning the problems with basar v'chalav, it gets all mixed up. Now we'll learn what do you do, how do you kasher the utensils. So, as we learned many times in Hilchos Pesach and various different times, it's like this. There's certain materials that are kasherable, certain materials are not kasherable. Because the concept of kashering a utensil is a few basic things. Number one, again, like we learned, if this is a clean pot, I cook meat in it, the meat becomes absorbed within the wall of the pot. Therefore, how do I get the pot back to normal, back to what it should be? So the rule is the way it goes in, it comes out. That means if this pot, let's say, was a dairy pot and now I cooked meat in it, so then how do I get it out? With boiling hot water. It went in with hot water, now it goes out with hot water. There are certain materials, Chachamim established, like for instance, the Gemara says, Kli Cheres, an earthenware vessel, and the Gemara says it never leaves the walls. You'll kasher it once, a little bit will come out, not all of it. You'll kasher it 100 times, there'll still be something left in there. So therefore, an earthenware vessel, generally speaking, is not kasherable. There are certain ways you could eventually kasher an earthenware vessel, but again, we'll get to that later. Now, that's if it goes in with liquid, it goes out with liquid. But if, let's say, it's an earthenware vessel, so let's say you have a ceramic, which is cheres, an earthenware utensil, and it becomes treif, so you can never kasher it. That's one thing. Another thing is, what happens, it becomes treif with boiling, and not with liquid. It becomes treif directly with fire. Example, let's say you have a broiler pan, okay? And on it, a kosher broiler pan, by mistake, somebody broiled non-kosher meat. So now you're putting non-kosher meat directly on the broiler pan. So it's not going in with hot water, it's going in with direct fire. So the only way you can kasher that is if you kasher it, again, with fire. It went in with fire, it goes out with fire. Okay, that is the general rule that we're learned, and we're going to learn more details about kashering utensils. So again, a pot that went in with liquid, and it's a kasherable material, it has to go out with liquid by boiling it up. If it went in with direct fire, the only way you can kosher it is going with direct fire. Okay? That's the general rule. So let's say you have a frying pan. Now, a frying pan, now you put a little bit of oil underneath, but that's not considered liquid. It's not cooked. There's a little that shouldn't stick to the bottom. So what happens again, somebody had a meat frying pan, and then on it they cooked a cheese omelet by mistake. Somebody thought it was dairy, and it had to be a meat frying pan, and they made a cheese omelet in that frying pan. So now you have a meat frying pan with cheese in it, and it became not with liquid, it became directly with the fire, because it's on the fire, it's not liquid. So again, that would need libun. The method of hot boiling fire is called libun. The difference the poskim write, which is a very important...
What about the omelet?
The omelet.
Sounds very appetizing.
Okay, what's very interesting, if the pan wasn't used for meat for 24 hours, and the pan is clean, so the omelet is kosher. But you have to kosher the pot. The pan became treif, because now it has meat and milk in it. But the omelet would be kosher.
So
I know that's more important than the pot. Yeah. What? Klicha is same thing.
If it's within 24 hours, it's not kosher.
No, within 24 hours, then you cannot eat the omelet.
Feed it to your worker.
No, because it's meat and milk now together. Remember, we learned meat and milk together, Zasibano. Because now you have a fresh taste of meat coming into the milk. Okay? So by the way, if somebody did that intentionally, they took a meat pot and they cooked in it a cheese omelet and it was used within 24 hours for meat, they would, not only would they not be allowed to eat it, they would get a sin of cooking meat and milk together.
This is within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. What? Now, what's the difference?
Rabbi, can you take the omelet, wait for 24 hours and eat it then?
No. Sorry.
That's so disappointing. Freezing.
Now, what happens, what's the difference between the koshering method? It's a very big halachic difference, by the way. What's the difference if you kosher something with boiling hot water or if you kosher it with direct fire, like a blowtorch or things like that? So the answer is, when you kosher with hot water, hagala it's called, let's say you take a bigger pan than this, heat it up with water, we'll get into the details and it's the concept of it. And you, after it bubble boils, you put this pot in, submerge it completely in it, and leave it in for, let's say, 10 seconds, you take it out, rinse it under cold water. What happens over there? So hot water, like whether it makes it go in, and hot water makes it go out. So the problem, right? So the problem is, if I'm going to kosher this pot with hagala within 24 hours of the time it became treif, I might have an issue. What is the issue? The pot has treif in it. Now I'm going to kosher it, and the treif is going to come out, right? But the water is still hot. So after it comes out, it might go back in. And it's a fresh taste within 24 hours. There's a lot of details in it, but then I like to speak practical dinim. So then, that's why when you do hagala, you have to wait 24 hours. Because then it's a blemished taste. So let's say this pot became treif, yeah, but after 24 hours, the taste is blemished. So now when I kosher with boiling hot water and it takes it out, so I don't care if it goes back in, because it's a blemished taste. It's not a real taste, so that's no problem. By the way, the point is even more. There's a rule in halacha like this. Aidi detara lemiflat leibola. If it's busy spitting out, it cannot absorb. Simple example of that, when a person talks in Haksa he can't hear. You can't talk and hear at the same time because you're busy spitting out, you can't hear anything, okay? Now, so the question is like this. Let's say this is a treifa pot. I'm koshering it within 24 hours, okay? Which I really shouldn't, but let's say I did. Okay, let's analyze why I can't. Because if I would kosher within 24 hours, so let's say for argument's sake, it takes 10 seconds for all the treif to come out. So for those 10 seconds that it's spitting it out, no treif is going to go back into the pot. Because if it's spitting out, it can't absorb. Yeah? But what happens if you leave the pot in there for 20 seconds? So now after 10 seconds, it's not spitting out anymore because everything went out already. Now it's going to go back in, and it's a fresh taste within 24 hours. So because of all that, the halacha is you have to wait 24 hours before you kosher anything with hagala. Okay? That's the general rule. Libun, on the other hand, when you kosher something with direct fire, you're not spitting it out. The halacha is fire destroys what's in there. So I'm not spitting it out, I'm destroying it. What's the difference? If I'm destroying it, the whole reason why I have to wait 24 hours is because it spits out and it goes in and spits out. And then it's going to go back in, right? But if I'm burning it out, it's not going to go out anywhere. I'm destroying it. Therefore, the halacha is, when you do libun means with direct fire, you don't need to wait 24 hours. You could do it right away. As soon as it becomes treif, if you're going to kasher with a blowtorch or self-cleaning oven, whatever it is, yeah? So then, you don't even need to wait 24 hours, you could do it right away.
You have a Torah utensil, you put it in the Hagala, and it is within 24 hours, less than 24 hours. So the utensil which you're doing the Hagala in, that one becomes
It will become treif also. Yeah.
Can you do libun everything, like, even though it's not, it's water, and you do libun?
You can do better for worse. I know. You could do a stronger kashering for a lesser kashering, but you can't do a lesser kashering for a stronger kashering. In other words, libun is the epitome. Even in libun we'll learn as we go on, there's what's called libun kal and libun gomor. Libun gomor means it becomes literally red hot. You kosher it away, it becomes red hot. Libun kal is that you make it hot enough. Sometimes it says in halacha the expression that if you put a straw, which is something very combustible, yeah, at the other side of it is going to burn. That's one definition. Other places in Shulchan Aruch it says Yatzel Ledesbei. You make it so hot that if you touch it, you're going to have to take your hand back. That's Libun Kal. And the Rebbe Rashab explains in the Alter Rebbe, because sometimes it says like this, sometimes it says like this. So he says if there's rust, you need that a straw would burn. If it's regular, just touching it, a Yatzel Ledesbei would be enough.
How hot does the water have to be
When you do Hagala, the water has to come to a rapid boil, which again, basically at sea level, it's 212 degrees. But what the problematic is, if you ever do koshering, you heat up this pot. Let's say I'm going to use this to kosher. I heat it up, bubbles, yeah? You ever notice when you put in a pot, the water goes down already. It's not as hot. It stops bubbling. So you have to make sure that you have to wait until the water bubbles again. Because it needs mala babus. What?
If the intensity of kashering isn't a minute, but the kashering pot is very big. So you have shishim in the water.
No, we're afraid it's going to go out and back into the same pot.
And it would hit a lot of water. The shishim, maybe the spoon.
No, you don't do it. No, you can't. It's not going to be practical. You need 60 times the pot. Well, you know how much water you need. Unless you have a little spoon. Okay, so that's the concept of libun and hagala. Okay, now, so there is a kula in Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't say that, by the way. In Shulchan Aruch it says you need 24 hours. There is, nowadays, you want to be makel that what's called linus laila. You want to say that even if it's not 24 hours, it was just overnight, that it wasn't used, is also blemished already. Some poskim want to say if you put in soap or things that blemish the water, it also is good. But that's a big kula that not everybody, Shechina doesn't agree with it. It's later poskim that come up, Yishatzat Chak, to kasher it. Where you do have this big problem, by the way, in the big factories, that they're koshering it, to make kosher products on it, there's sometimes many of the big companies rely on what's called linus laila, because the company is not willing to stop production for 24 hours. So they might just stop production for 12 hours. But then it's a leniencies, whatever. But that's, there is such a concept, but it's actually lenient.
When you eat meat, the status of meat changes, becomes blemished after 6 hours. That's why we wait for 6 hours.
No, that's in the stomach.
That's not, yeah.
Not in the pot. In the pot it stays. But again, that's only after 24 hours becomes blemished, is only when it's not the actual meat. It's the taste of the meat in the pot. If it's actual meat in the pot, 24 hours is not going to be enough. You have to clean the pot from all the meat. Otherwise, what?
That makes sense.
It makes sense. That's what, yeah, it all makes sense. Okay, next is one more din. And that is the din that you need libun when it comes directly with fire is only when it's still on the fire. What happens if I took a pot, okay, I had a steak on a grill, yeah? So now it became treif mamish with direct fire. The grill was a dairy grill. I broiled steak on the dairy grill, so it went in direct fire. So now I have to kasher the grill only with direct fire. What happens if I took the meat off? And now I cut it with a knife. I cut it with the meat knife. So the meat knife, because the meat was not on the fire, then I don't need to do libun, I could do hagala. You only need libun while it's still on the fire. Then you need libun. But if it's off the fire and to a different thing, then halachically I could do hagala. You don't have to do libun. Because there's another interesting din. Okay, there's another also din. This we're going to have to continue tomorrow. What happens if what absorbed inside the pot was not treif? It was kosher. Say, for instance, I had a pot, it's a dairy pot. Milk went into the pot, correct? Milk is not treif. Now, put meat into the pot. No, I'm sorry. I take it back. What happened if somebody cooked milk in a pot? Clean pot. Now I want to kosher it for meat. Even though we learned you don't kosher for meat to milk. Okay, but we learned with libun, with fire you could kosher for meat to milk. That's what most poskim say. So what happens, one second. I broiled the steak on a grill. Okay, now I want to make the grill dairy. And now I want to make the grill dairy. So because the grill never had something treif in it, the meat wasn't treif, the meat's meat. So then, according to many opinions, I could kosher it with hagala. Because it wasn't a treifa grill. It was a grill that had meat in it. There was no milk yet in it. Now I want to make this into a dairy grill. So if you hold then you can kash it, then you don't need hagala. I mean, you don't need libun, you can do it with hagala. To be continued.